What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into Falcons Today. On today's episode, we're going to react to Daniel Jeremiah's new NFL big board. I really respect Daniel Jeremiah. He's one of the best draft insiders in the game. For me, it's him, Dane Brugler, towards the top of my list. So when Moving the Sticks dropped a brand new big board for the NFL draft, I wanted to see who he had in the top 10, top 15, because that's really in the range of the Falcons will be picking someone at pick number 8. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We can kind of gloss over the first two guys, Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. They're not going to be an option for Atlanta. But then you get a run of some guys that definitely could be in play at pick number 8, like Odunze and Malik Nabers. So let's kind of break down the next two receivers in this draft class, because I don't think it's out of the question that the Falcons could take one of these two guys if they feel like they are just simply too talented to pass on, even if they're already better at wide receiver at the moment than they are at edge rusher, which I know everyone is sitting on pins and needles waiting for. But let's look at Odunze first. Here's what Daniel Jeremiah wrote. Odunze is a big, athletic wideout with exceptional hands. He can play outside or in the slot. He is refined and polished in everything he does on the field. He uses a variety of releases at the line of scrimmage and is a clean route runner. He makes some incredible adjustments on poorly thrown balls. He tracks naturally over his shoulder. After the catch, he is very tough to bring down and has some nifty make miss ability. He plays with a ton of passion and energy. Overall, Odunze is a complete player and reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald coming out of college. I have complete confidence that Odunze is going to make an excellent, incredible NFL wide receiver, which is why that even with the Falcons really needing help at pass rusher, if they feel like this guy is someone that could be a Larry Fitzgerald, they're going to thank themselves in a couple of years when they went with Odunze over drafting for need at edge rusher. And yes, you are kicking that can down the road, and you're going to try and address that problem later, and maybe you won't do a great job of it. But if you truly feel like Odunze has that type of ceiling, I don't know many teams that would pass on him if that's how highly regarded he is. Now, as for Malik Nabers, he's a different type of receiver, but equally talented. Here's what Daniel Jeremiah wrote. Nabers is a dynamic receiver with outstanding competitiveness and production. He explodes off the line in his release, creating immediate separation. He sets up defenders before snapping off his route. He isn't afraid to work in the middle of the field and has strong hands to finish through contact. He does a lot of damage on slot fades where he uses his speed to win early, and he tracks the ball with ease. After the catch, he explodes through tackles and also has a nasty stiff arm. Overall, Nabers is an electric playmaker who reminds me of DJ Moore with the ball in his hands. I like Malik Nabers a lot. I know there are some people that think Malik Nabers is the best overall prospect in this draft, which is why I think he's got a very polarizing ceiling and floor, right? The trend is all LSU wide receivers make great NFL receivers. Look at Jamar Chase. Look at Justin Jefferson. If Malik Nabers is the next guy in that company, then he's going to make an incredible player. The only reason why I have floor even in the conversation is he didn't run an extensive route tree at LSU, and he really won off his physical traits. And those are physical traits that will win in the NFL too. But Odunze, I think, has a little bit of a higher floor because he's got so many of the intangibles and the overall fundamentals you look for in a wide receiver when it comes to ball tracking skills and a little bit more of a well-rounded prospect. But I think both of these players are going to make incredible receivers in the game. So if you had to pick one, who would you pick? Malik Nabers or Odunze? I understand that pass rusher is a bigger need for Atlanta at the moment. But if you feel like these two guys are going to be generational type players that if they were in draft classes of their own without Marvin Harrison Jr. in there, they could be top 3 picks by themselves if it wasn't such a quarterback loaded draft class. So let me know which receiver you'd rather go with. For me, I would go with Rome Odunze. And maybe that's not the best fit for Atlanta because there are some similarities between Odunze and Drake London's game where I think Nabers could bring a little bit of a new speed, a new flair to the wide receiver room. All three of these guys, London, Odunze, Nabers, they're all fast as heck. I mean, let's not act like one is tremendously slower than the other or anything like that. But overall, I just give a slight edge to Odunze, but that's not me saying Nabers is bad or anything. That's just me recognizing they're both incredible. I just like one by a split fraction more. Let's move on in Daniel Jeremiah's big board, 6 through 10. Jayden Daniels, Brock Bowers come in first. Then Joe Alt from Notre Dame, the left tackle. Terrion Arnold and Taliese Fuaga out of Oregon State. Let me just say, before we get to Terrion Arnold, because he's the most in play for Atlanta in this section of the big board, I wish the Falcons needed a tight end because Brock Bowers would be such a fun pick, right? Keep him in the Peach State for starters. But on top of that, I think Brock Bowers is going to make an incredible NFL tight end. His yards after catch abilities do not come around every single year in the draft at that position. And on top of that, he's a mean SOB when it comes to blocking. Like, he may not be the biggest tight end, but the guy puts an effort when he goes onto the line of scrimmage. But I don't think tight end is really in play for Atlanta. I think they want to see Kyle Pitts pan out a little bit more with Kirk Cousins in town now, and they've just got bigger needs at the 8th overall pick than finding a competition at tight end. So one of the needs is cornerback. Insert Terrion Arnold. Came to Alabama as a safety, made the change to corner, and he really flourished in that role. Last year, he had 63 tackles, 12 pass breakups, 5 interceptions. So we're talking about a corner that's got great ball skills, great playmaking abilities, but he's also a shutdown corner, right? I mean, I think some people look at those interceptions and breakups and they start to think of cornerbacks like Trayvon Diggs for the Dallas Cowboys, where they're going to make a lot of big plays, but they'll also give up the big plays because they're constantly trying to get the interception. With Arnold, I don't get that same sense. And I don't think Daniel Jeremiah does either. Here's what he wrote. Arnold has ideal size, play speed, and instincts for the position. He plays both outside and inside at the nickel. He is effective in press and off coverage. He has outstanding ball skills, and the production reflects his ability. He is a physical, face-up tackler. He doesn't miss tackles in space. Overall, I struggle to find much to criticize in Arnold's play. Despite his lack of experience at the position, having arrived at Alabama as a highly regarded safety prospect, he has all the tools and traits to be a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback. I'm a big fan of Terrion Arnold. He is my favorite cornerback in this draft class, and that's not a really hot take or anything, but you've got other good corners like Nate Wiggins and Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid McKinstry. But the more I watch his tape, the more I come away with thinking he's going to make a great cornerback in this league. I don't think he's the next Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I don't think he quite has that eliteness of traits athletically, but I think he's going to make a star cornerback. I think he's got that Pro Bowl upside to him. And when you look at Atlanta's cornerback room, you have questions after A.J. Terrell. You have questions with A.J. Terrell. Is A.J. Terrell a corner that Raheem Morris and New D.C. Jimmy Lake view as a long-term piece in their secondary, as his contract is expiring soon? If they don't, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to try and draft a corner this year like Terrion Arnold. And if you move on from A.J. Terrell, you've already got a new CB1 in the works. And if you don't move on from Terrell, awesome. You've got an incredible 1-2 punch at cornerback, and you're going to shut down all the quarterbacks in the NFC South for the next half decade plus. So I don't hate pairing Arnold and A.J. Terrell. Is it this team's biggest need? No, it's not. But if you think Terrion Arnold is going to make an incredible corner in this league or an above average to great cornerback, and you want to make a ferocious secondary with Jesse Bates, Terrion Arnold, and A.J. Terrell, your defense may not win because of the lack of pass rush, but the secondary is definitely going to keep you in the game because not many guys are going to be getting open under their watch. Now we're going to look at the rest of this big board in just a moment. But first, I want to tell everyone about our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Spring is here, which means we've got Braves baseball. We have the Atlanta Hawks in the thick of the playoff bubble race. And we've got plenty of other postseason sports around the corner. And you should not miss any of the action because of ticket prices. With Game Time, you can get killer last-minute deals and all-in prices for all the big events. There is nothing more frustrating than when you spend all the time searching for ticket prices, get to the checkout, and then you see all the fees and taxes that get tacked on. But with Game Time, they'll show you the all-in price right from the start. It's the best place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem that code, CHAT Sports, for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on in DJ's big board, 11 through 15. We got a couple of offensive linemen at bookends. Troy Fontenot, the offensive tackle out of Washington. Dallas Turner, Quinyon Mitchell, Jared Verse, and Leu Latu. So let's talk about the two top edge rushers, Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. Starting with Turner, here's what Jeremiah wrote. Turner is a long, athletic edge rusher, edge with excellent production and an intriguing skill set as a pass rusher. He has a quick first step and wins a lot of reps by stabbing with his inside arm and collapsing the offensive tackle's outside shoulder. He can also bend, wrap, flatten, and finish once he gets to the top of his rush. He is inconsistent with his pure bull rush. The longer the runway before contact, the more success he finds. Against the run, he can set a physical edge or slip blocks to make plays at the line of scrimmage. His effort is excellent. Overall, Turner has played a pivotal role on the Bama defense for 3 years, and he's ready to make an immediate impact at the next level. I like Dallas Turner. A lot of people like Dallas Turner. But there is a but. And the big, ugly but rearing its head in is, why is a guy that has incredible physical traits, ran a blistering fast 40-yard dash, size, strength, all that's there. The production's there too, right? I mean, why does he have all these great stats and everything that it entails, but he's not going earlier? Like, why is there not a more unanimous decision on Dallas Turner being a top 10 player in this draft class? That's what I just can't seem to wrap my head around. You don't often see that type of athleticism and that level of production and have it not be this is a top 5, top 6 player in this draft class. I think for me, it's something that Daniel Jeremiah pointed out. The longer the runway, the better. And in the NFL, offensive tackles are a lot smarter than college tackles. And that's true for almost all positions. But I think it's really true, and I think it gets lost on, that the offensive tackles, they do their homework on the opposing edge rushers. And they learn those guys' tendencies. And so once they've got an idea of what the opposing edge rusher's game plan is, well, they're going to take all of their favorite tricks and whatnot away from them. And they're going to go out and they're going to attack them, right? So you're going to see left tackles and the right tackles in the league. When they go up against Dallas Turner, they're going to meet him at the point of the attack because they know he wins with speed, not bull rush, not brute strength. And if you become a little bit one-dimensional as an edge rusher in the NFL, you're still going to get your wins. You're not going to be a bad player, but you're not going to be that generational defensive end outside linebacker. And I think that's the reason why Dallas Turner is a good player, and I think he's going to have a good NFL career. But don't you think it's a bit peculiar that he's got the physical traits and the production, and we aren't clamoring for him a little bit more in this draft class? That's why I feel like, while Atlanta may go Dallas Turner because they need edge rusher badly, I'm very tempted by some of these wide receivers. All right, let's talk about Jared Verse next. The original Albany Great Dane transferred to Florida State, put together back-to-back 9-sack seasons for the Seminoles. Very productive, very physical. Again, like Dallas Turner, he checks a lot of boxes, and that's why he's going to go round 1. Here's what Jeremiah wrote. Verse is a rugged, twitched-up edge rusher with a thick, powerful build. At Florida State, he moved around the defensive front. Against the pass, he explodes off the edge and tries to run right through offensive tackles, doing so in 2 different ways. 1, he will stutter to get offensive tackles off balance and then charge right through with his hands. Or 2, he'll simply bury his head into the blocker's chest and walk him right back to the quarterback. Against the rush, he is stout at the point of attack. He closes the back door quickly on runs away from him with great speed and effort. Overall, Verse is not only a productive pass rusher, he's a violent tempo setter for the defense. I like Jared Verse a lot, and I think him and Dallas Turner are a lot closer than maybe people realize. But I do look at this through the lens of what is Raheem Morris thinking right now? And my suspicion is, as a defensive-minded guy, Raheem Morris is looking at Dallas Turner's traits and thinking, if I can get my hands on that type of mold, I can really put together an excellent edge rusher. So I do like Dallas Turner a lot. I do think it's very valuable that he offers probably a little bit more of a defensive run-stopping upside than Turner does, especially when you factor in how heavy teams are going right now with nickel defense. You need your defensive linemen, the front few guys, to be able to be adequate run stoppers because you don't have that third linebacker on the field to help out in that department. So that's definitely a big win for Jared Verse. And if Atlanta plans on running a lot of nickel defense, which we didn't see a ton of last year, I think that's really going to boost Verse's stock. Moving on here, 16 through 20, we get to the next edge rusher, Leu Latu out of UCLA, followed by Brian Thomas, J.C. Latham, Byron Murphy, and J.J. McCarthy. Let's just focus in on Latu because I think he is the most likely plausible pick for Atlanta at pick 8 compared to the rest of those guys. So last year for the UCLA Bruins, the most production of all 3 edge rushers we've talked about today. More tackles for loss, more sacks, right? He has filled up the stat sheet more than Turner and Verse. So why is he 3rd? That's the big question, and I want to answer that question. Here's what Jeremiah had to say, though. Latu has ideal size, quickness, and instincts for the position. As a pass rusher, he can win with his quick get-off or a variety of hand moves. He doesn't have elite speed or power, but he wins with technique, bend, and savvy. He can corner well at the top of his rush and is an outstanding finisher. Against the run, he's been inconsistent when it comes to setting the edge. His effort is outstanding to chase against both run and pass. Latu did have serious medical issues while at the University of Washington. Overall, Latu is the most skilled pass rusher in this class and should have an immediate impact at the next level. Laiatu Latu kind of reminds me of college basketball stars. And just stick with me for a moment because this is definitely a Colin Cowherd type of analogy. How often when we watch March Madness or watch college basketball are some of the best college basketball players just not even really getting drafted in the NBA, right? Like Zach Edey at Purdue, people think he's a fringe end round 1, top round 2 player, but he's the best player in college basketball right now. How does that make sense? I think Latu kind of falls in that bucket where he's got a ton of production, but the way he wins at UCLA, I have my fears about that translating over to the NFL, okay? He doesn't have a deep arsenal of moves. A lot of his sacks and a lot of his best games in production came against lesser offensive tackles. He beat up on like Coastal Carolina and Colorado. Not a single one of those offensive linemen are going to sniff the NFL. But when he went up against Oregon State and Fuaga, the tackle who was earlier in DJ's big board, he kind of got put in Fuanga's pocket. So when he went up against some really stout competition, we didn't really see the guy that put together a 13-sack season. So for that reason, that plus the lack of extreme physical traits standing out, he's not slow. He's not weak by any means. Don't get me wrong. He should and will be a first rounder, and I don't think he'll be a bad NFL player. But because he doesn't stand out physically in any area, in a lot of his successes, I just don't see them carrying over to the NFL perfectly. He's third in my edge rusher ranking department. Now, if you had to pick an edge rusher, who would you pick? Turner, Verse, or Latu? I think Latu is the most skilled, and I think Jeremiah really hit the nail on the head with that. But I think Turner's production and athletic traits carry him over to the top, and Jared Verse is very close, but I think I've got Dallas Turner ahead. In fact, of the 5 guys we had a narrowed-in focus on today's show, here's how I rank them. Similar to Daniel Jeremiah, I've got Rome Odunze number 1. I think Rome Odunze of these 5 players will have the best NFL career, simply put. Malik Nabers I have second. I put Turner third. I do like Jared Verse a lot. I remember talking about Jared Verse last year, thinking he might come out for the NFL draft, but instead he stayed for another season at Florida State. And then I put Terrion Arnold at 5. Like Arnold, don't look at this as like, oh, he's hating on the guys towards the end. No, there are very razor-thin separations between these players. The biggest gap, I think, is probably between 2 and 3. I just think Odunze and Nabers are going to be players that we look back at this draft class as, what a loaded wide receiver draft class. All right, that will do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. I hope you enjoyed our content. If you have not subscribed yet, consider going ahead and doing so, and lock yourself in for the best free Falcons content.